Gengar, the Shadow Pokemon, and the dark side of Clefairy. Except, not really. Pokemon Moon's Pokedex description states that Gengar wishes for a traveling companion due to it once being human. So it sucks the life out of people while hiding in their shadow, hoping to use the life force that it gathers to create a companion. That's dark. Perhaps this hobby assists in Gengar's competitive performance across generations. Let's find out. This is the history of Gengar. I will be covering these competitive formats. Gen 1. Gengar's high speed and special stats make it an offensive monster since its speed increases critical chance, thus increasing damage output. It has versatile offensive moves to cover most situations. Lower health and defense stats make its weakness to the common Earthquake problematic. The high usage of psychic types cause the Ghost to be wary, at the very least to Alakazam, since it outspeeds. Having Ghost and Poison moves using the attack stat for damage calculation makes Stab pointless. And Gengar doesn't even receive any good offensive moves for those typings. Being the fastest sleep inducer of the meta, possessing immunities to normal moves, and being the second fastest explosion user in the game allows Gengar to carve out a spot for itself in the meta. Since waking up from the sleep status burns through your turn, and no Pokemon is immune to the move, Hypnosis could be quite threatening even if it was unreliable. Explosion halves the defense of the target, thus it is generally used to suicide when Gengar finds itself in a tough spot. Standard sets usually include Hypnosis, Explosion, Thunderbolt, and Mega Drain. Strong matchups include any slower Pokemon that is weak to the coverage that it carries or has low special. Weak matchups include Alakazam, Golem, Rhydon, other Psychic types, and Tauros. Gengar was overused in Smoke and Tearing and considered top 10 overall in the meta. Gen 2. Special Split leaves Gengar with 75 special defense, making it frailer against special assaults, which hurts even more considering that the newly introduced Dark-type moves are special based. Starmie's standard set carries Psychic, and Misdreavus, new Ghost, rubs salt in the wounds by being a superior Spin Blocker, Perish Trapper, and Snorlax counter. Oh, but it's not all gloom and doom for Gengar. Gengar's type coverage is more diverse in this generation through gaining access to the elemental punches. Wide type coverage combines with Destiny Bond and Explosion to create the best assassin in the meta. Gengar's sets were either offensive or Perish Trapping, with Thunderbolt being the default coverage to slap on sets due to Gengar's stab moves being physical. Its strengths are unchanged, but the same cannot be said for its weaknesses. There are no hard counters to Gengar. The best checks include Raikou, Umbreon, Houndoom, Tyranitar, Steelix, Snorlax, Quagsire, and Blissey. While a bit shakier, Zapdos, Rhydon, Golem, Marowak, Misdreavus, Gengar, Heracross, and Miltank can be used as long as they can apply enough pressure to force Gengar out. Gengar was ranked overused by Smoke and Tearing and considered top 12 overall in the meta. Gen 3. Levitate grants Gengar 3 immunities: Normal, Fighting, and Ground. It also gains Will-O-Wisp to burn physical attackers. The shift to IVs and EVs don't bother Gengar, since its stat spread is strictly offensive anyways. If anything, it just softens up the victims. Once again, Gengar's set variety proves to be its greatest feature. Strong matchups include any Pokemon that are weak to Electric, Ice, Grass, Status, or Fire. Weak matchups include Blissey, Snorlax, Regice, Zapdos, Celebi, Jirachi, Tyranitar, Metagross, Raikou, and Dusclops. These Pokemon can soak up the special hits either naturally or after setup, then take Gengar out with their own attacks, or in the case of Raikou, outspeed Gengar altogether. Gengar is still overused by Smoke and Tearing and is considered top 4 in the meta. Gen 4. Physical Special Split for moves results in Gengar gaining special stab moves while losing some coverage options and gaining others. Some physical attackers gain access to dark moves for coverage, which is bad news for Gengar. Strong matchups include anything that is slower than Gengar and is weak to Ghost, Fighting, Fire, Ice, Grass, Electric, Burn Status, or Explosion. Specific strengths are based on the moveset being used. Weak matchups include Pursuit, Spiritomb Sucker Punch, Scizor, Blissey, Snorlax, Jirachi, Bronzong, and Scarfed Heatran. While countering Gengar can be difficult due to the variety of its movesets, it can be easily taken out by 1 or 2 neutral hits. Gengar was ranked overused by Smogon and considered top 23 in the meta. Gen 5. Unlike most Pokemon, Gengar did not receive new moves or a hidden ability. As a result, its strengths are unchanged. Natural special tanks and pursuit users still give Gengar trouble, but the new meta is faster than ever before. This leads to more Pokemon that can naturally outspeed Gengar, Choice Scarf users, and strong priority moves. Even so, Gengar was ranked overused by Smogon and considered top 35 in the meta. Gen 6. With the introduction of fairy types, Gengar has a reason to use Poison Stab, such as Sludge Wave. The hold item, Assault Vest, makes breaking through some Pokemon more difficult. Strong priority moves are still common in the meta, but Gengar's defensive and offensive dominance over fairies makes it more useful than ever before. New threats to Gengar include Mega Lopunny, Metagross, Gyarados, and Gale Wayne's Talonflame. Gengar was placed in Smogon's overused tier and considered top 21 in the meta. While many Mega forms gave Gengar trouble, it received a Mega evolution of its own. The new form improved its already great special attack and speed, along with light buffs to its defenses. Taunt and Destiny Bond on top of this allowed Gengar to act as a stall breaker, wall breaker, and revenge killer, all in one grinning package. The Shadow Tag ability made it an excellent trapper who could easily choose its own matchups. As a result, Smogon banned the form to the Ubers tier. Here the meta could more easily take advantage of the Mega form's weaknesses. Losing Levitate made Gengar weak to ground once again. Pursuit users can still pick Gengar off, and ghost types are unaffected by Shadow Tag, and Shed Shell allows its holder to escape. Moves such as Baton Pass, U-Turn, Volt Switch, and Parting Shot allow the user to escape from Shadow Tag. Choice Scarfers, priority moves, and naturally faster Pokemon can outspeed and knock out Mega Gengar, as its defensive stats are mediocre in this tier. Even so, Gengar's Mega form was considered top 12 in the Ubers meta. Gen 5 VGC. Gengar was often overshadowed by Chandelure. However, Gengar's lack of water weakness and higher speed stat gave it an edge. Due to its frail defenses, users had to be wary of Pursuit, Tyranitar, Sucker Punch, Latios, Cresselia, and most strong offensive Pokemon, as they can all easily take Gengar out. Gengar still managed to hold a place in the top 32 of the VGC meta, despite these factors. Gen 6 VGC. Gengar is used in its Mega form as well as its base. Its role on teams is similar, with the biggest difference being that Chandelure is no longer a competing factor for a team slot. Dark types, Conkeldurr with Guts and Assault Vest, Choice Scarfers, Greninja, and Pokemon holding a Lumberry check Gengar efficiently. The Mega and Base form held the top 12 and 19 rankings in the meta respectively. So, how good was Gengar? Well, it has been a top tier Pokemon every single generation due to the variety of its coverage, boost sets, and ideal offensive stats. Taking all generations into account, Gengar is great overall. That's it. I will have another video up next week. So, leave a comment of what Pokemon you want me to cover next. Till then, stay cool, my noobs.